Hello, Kathy. How you doing?
Hello, doing okay.
Kathy, have we met before?
I don't think so. I'm with Chainbreaker Collective out here in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Right. Nice to meet you, Kathy.
Nice to meet y'all.
And
Be
I'm
muted.
Alda.
Yeah, I'll be muted here listening.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, Kayla. Hi, Jacques.
Hello,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. Again, all things considered, pretty good. Yeah, I have the how are things down there with the flooding? Is that near y'all?
Where we're at, it's like where I'm at in San Antonio. It didn't flood.
Yeah,
It
good.
all the flooding happened right outside of town in Kerrville, and it's devastating, really.
Yeah, yeah. Been rough seeing it. Hope for the best in a bad situation.
Yeah,
Well, welcome everybody. We're just giving maybe 5 minutes for people to join up, and we'll get started in a little bit. And Jessica and Lorna, welcome. How are you all doing today?
Good.
Good, good. Where are y'all calling in from?
Uh, I'm in Moorhead, Kentucky, northeastern
Are you
Eastern
friends
Kentucky.
with Annette?
Yes.
Okay, good, good, good. Yeah, I heard she was inviting some folks, so glad
Yeah.
you're here.
Central Appalachia.
Did y'all get storms too?
Not, no, not really.
Okay, yeah, we had some storms here. I'm up here in Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah. My mom lives in northern Indiana, and I grew up near South Bend on a small
Okay.
farm.
All right. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How's everybody doing today? Good seeing you.
Good to see you too. We are just gathering up and we'll get started around 3:05.
It's looking warm in Indiana. Seeing a lot of tank tops.
Yeah. It's been warm. It's been hot. It was like mid 90s for like the last feels like 3 weeks. So, but it's finally cooling off a little bit. We're getting storms this week, so it's a little less intense. And hi Daisy, how you doing?
Hola,
Oh, hi
hola, ¿cómo
Renee. Good to
andan?
see you too.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yeah. Hey, how
All
you
right. Hey, how you doing? How you
doing?
doing, Alvin?
Good. Good to see you. How are things
You
going
missed,
in San Antonio in your world?
well, we're doing okay, except for that horrible flooding we had northwest of here.
Yeah.
If you're outside, that means you're up north where there's no mosquitoes.
They're not too bad yet,
Yeah.
but we do have the little repeller we use. All right, why don't we kick it off with some intros and check-in. So welcome everybody to our learning exchange on community land trusts. My name is Alvin Sangsuangul with Kheprw Institute and also helping to co-facilitate these sessions with Right to the City Alliance. I'm also here with Zaira. You want to introduce yourself too?
Yes, thank you, Alvin. Hi, everyone. Saida, she, her, right to the city national staff. And I'm super excited to be here with you and with Alvin. Alvin, I did just want to also just take a second to note that we do have interpretation going. So if folks could go into the globe on your right-hand side corner and choose either Spanish or English, your preferred language, and go ahead and get into this room. We do have Spanish speakers. Sí, we do have, do we have Spanish speakers, Alvin, that are doing that? ¿Alguien habla en español y necesita español hoy?
¿Estás preguntando que si hablamos español o necesitamos traducción?
Sí, necesitan traducción.
No, I'm okay.
Wondering if we should give it a few more minutes, Alvin.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
All right, Margot and Beto, we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll check back. Thank you.
And also just an announcement, we are recording it so that we can keep this for future folks who want to check it out. So we'll make sure everybody gets the recording from the session. Thank you. And then we'll also be live streaming this to Kheprw Institute's YouTube channel too. So the heads up, I'm going to get that started. Then we'll actually start with, oh, we do have Eva here. Yeah, so we will need interpretation.
Alvin, just so you know, there's a lot of feedback.
Oh, here? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear, but when you're talking, like you can hear the feedback on the mic.
Okay, let me switch to headphones. Thank you. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with little intros. So today I want just everyone to go around. Oh, did you want to make the interpretation announcement again?
Yeah, I just messaged Eva, pero ya empezamos interpretación para los que...
Ya, ya la tengo. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, Eva.
Yes, I have it on already. Thank
Okay, okay, great. So we're going to go ahead and would like to start by welcoming our presenters today. We have Jeff Washburn up in Minneapolis, who is one of the founding executive director of the Minneapolis or it's City of Lakes Community Land Trust. And we also have Daisy here, who's with man, I always mess up saying it. Fideo. Can you help me out real quick?
Yeah, Fideicomiso Comunitario Tierra Libre.
It's a Tierra Libre CLT.
Awesome, thank you. But we'll start with just doing quick check-ins to see who all is in the room with us today. So we're just going to go around. Everyone just introduce your name, where you're zooming in from today. If you're with an organization, the organization, and then one thing that made you curious or that you're learning about right now. And I'll start us out. My name is Alvin, and I'm calling in from Indianapolis, Indiana, and with the Kheprw Institute. And one thing that I'm curious about right now is I'm reading Collective Courage by Dr. Jessica Gordon-Emhart, which is a history of Black cooperative economic thought and practice. And it just looks at the history of cooperatives in the United States. Yeah, learning about cooperatives. And I will go ahead and pass it over to Lorna since you're unmuted. And you can pass it to the next person when you're done.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Lorna, she, her, and I am with the Eastern Kentucky Community Land Trust, and we're just getting started. We're working on board. Well, I'm curious about fundraising and curious about getting some funds so that we can really, purchase property and really get started. So that's what I'm curious about. And I will pass it to, let's see. Daisy? Or are we doing, sorry, should I do the interpreter?
No, not the interpreters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Pass it to Jeffrey Washburn.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeff Washburn. I'm a consultant with Burlington Associates in Community Development. Guest with you all this afternoon. I, as Alvin shared, served for 21 years as the first staff person and ultimately the director for the City of Lakes Community Land Trust in Minneapolis. And I'll be sharing a lot more in a bit. I don't want to make this too political, but I'm constantly curious about how we as a country try to right ourselves and really be a place that is welcoming to all people, and it takes a relatively respectful place in the world in being a colleague versus an isolationist organized state. So I spend a lot of my time wondering what the theory of change is because it makes no sense at all to me. Sorry for the political comments there, but that's what's on my mind. Renee, good seeing you.
Well, I'm here in San Antonio. I'm the general manager for the Esperanza Community Land Trust. We're slowly getting things rolling. We've got a HUD grant, which is a whole journey in itself, just trying to loosen the funds and trying to figure out what steps to take next. And I'm curious about a whole lot of things, but basically what the experience is of other people in startup conditions, as well as moving things along. Certainly, fundraising is important, but anybody with experience in dealing with the city and county governments, I'm curious about.
Thank you, Renee. And would you like to pass to the next person?
Yeah, let me see who I can pass it over to. Zaira?
Thank you, Renee. Saida, she, her. I am in Tucson, Arizona, so very, very hot over here. I'm actually really curious to learn about all the work that you all have going on. On top of the fact that I've been reading, I started on this book from an advocate that I met at a social housing convening, and it's called Dismantling the Master's Clock on Race, Space, and Time. So it's about how, from what I understand so far, it's about how linear time and is used as a tool of oppression, and it has been a tool of colonization. So it's been a very good read so far. Probably one of the best presentations I've seen in a while when I met the author. I will hand it over to
Folks on our team are reading that too.
What was that?
Some folks on our team are reading it too.
Oh, really? Awesome. Yay. I'll hand it over to Lady T.
Hey fam, I'm Lady T and I'm checking in from DC. Showing up feeling pretty good. Pronouns are she, her. I like the question. I think I am curious about a feeling that's inside, like it's like a feeling of nostalgia. When I was in seventh grade, my teacher had us read a book called Animal Farm. And for some reason, like with what's going on today, I keep having like these images of when we were acting out as a play and not realizing what I was reading. I think that it does have a lot to do with what's happening now, but now I'm older. So my mom ended up getting me a copy of it, the 75th edition, anniversary edition. I just got it and I'm gonna be deep diving into it. So I'm curious to see what I'm gonna take away from it now, that I didn't necessarily understand when I was a kid. And I will pass it to Daisy.
Hiya, thank you. My name's Daisy, pronouns they, she, with Fideicomiso Comunitario Tierra Libre. And I'm just excited to share space with y'all. yeah, and I could share a little bit more a little bit later. So yeah, I'll pass it over to Carol.
Hi, everyone. I'm having technical difficulties and it's storming behind me. So it's probably the storm and the thunder and lightning. If you hear that, that's what it is, not me going crazy in my home.
Hear you loud and
Um,
clear.
Hi, can you
Hear you
hear me?
loud and clear. Yeah, we hear you perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm just glad to be here. I do have to jump off to go pick up kids from daycare, summer camp. But I said, just jump on for the time and spend the time that you can and learn all you can and share all you can. So I don't know who I missed or what the question was, but um, Alvin, if you could do me the honors.
Okay, no problem. I'll pass it over to Annette. On the
of
second question, something you're curious about, right?
something we're curious about.
What you learning about?
Oh, I'm curious about this is a whole different topic, but I'm curious about learning what Japan is doing to keep the violence down. In particular, I learned that last week. One of my colleagues, she's from Japan and she's moving back to Japan, and so we decided maybe we could put together some case studies and some models because I figure why not try because nothing's going right in our country in respects to that because every day we wake up, it's more violence. So that's what I'm curious to learn.
So thanks, Carol. And I will go ahead and just a reminder, if you haven't, if you're just joining us, if you could click the more dot dot dot, there is a globe for interpretation, should be, should allow you to go into your proper language. So if you're monolingual English, Spanish. Thank you. Now I'll pass it over to Annette next.
Hey everybody, it's Annette Hines. I am calling in from Moorhead, Kentucky, and I'm with Kentucky Tenants and the Eastern Kentucky CLT. And I'm curious about all kinds of things to do with the CLT. I'm curious if you guys have had any like backlash or people talking bad about CLTs. Like I've heard a lot of people say that it could be, like HOA, that we don't get enough of the housing insecure involved in decision making. So I'm really curious about that, and how also that you do get people who are housing insecure, involved in the decision making with the CLT community. So that's kind of what I'm curious about. And I will pass it to Fred.
Hello, I am Fred. Actually, I use he, him pronouns. I am from 1DC in DC. I am interested in learning two things. One, I limited equity co-ops, the structuring those. I'm super curious about how those deals are structured from the different sources. And the other thing is more generic, but still the infrastructure restraints that folks are currently experiencing in this process. I think that's the area I like to learn more about. Yeah, the infrastructure restraints and deal structuring for limited equity cooperatives. And let's see, could you help out me as well? I'm not sure who has it.
Yeah, no
Wrong.
problem. I'll pass it to Kathy. Thanks, bro.
Thanks.
Hey everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. I have no idea. It's afternoon here. I'm Kathy Garcia, she, hers. I am with Chainbreaker Collective out here in Santa Fe. Um, and I think I'll say the thing I'm curious about at the moment, for the policy nerdwonks who have been paying attention, the Western Governors Association just dropped their housing, like kind of vision platform, and they dropped CLTs and a few other things in there. So it's kind of like, wow, hey, that's cool. So my curiosity at this moment is about strange bedfellows. Strange bedfellows. I'm getting a little skirting some HR rules here, but yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Love you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Kathy. And we'll pass it over to Ava.
Hola, buenos días o tardes ya, ¿verdad?
Hello, good
Pues
morning,
yo
good afternoon to
estoy aprendiendo
everyone.
y
I'm
también
learning,
quiero
so
aprender.
I want to
Hace unos
learn.
días supimos,
Uh,
o
two
no
days
sabía de
ago,
dónde
we
venía
learned. I
el
didn't
Día
know
del Trabajo, quién luchó por este
where
día de las 8 horas
Memorial
de trabajo.
Day, where the
Y
work day, the 8-day work day came
estudiando la
from.
historia de
I
Lucy
didn't know,
González.
but now I found
Creo
out the
que
story about
conmovedor
Lucy
fue su lucha,
Gonzalez, and it
donde
was so
tuvo que perder a su familia,
moving
¿verdad? A su
how
esposo,
she lost her
ahorcados,
family in the
muertos. Eso es
struggle.
bien
She had to
triste,
lose
pero
her
lo que
husband in the
estamos
process. It's
viviendo
really
ahora, y
sad,
yo
but
digo, de las
what we're
grandes
living
luchas,
right
siempre a
now,
veces tiene que desgraciadamente salir esto, muertos. Y lo que
unfortunately,
estamos viviendo ahora es
dead
lo que
people
quiero
come out of
aprender,
this, and what we're living right now.
cómo
I'd
poder
like to
sobrevivir a
learn
lo
how
que
to
estamos viviendo
survive
hoy.
in the times that we're living
Porque
right
no lo
now
sé.
today,
Me siento
because I don't
impotente
know. I don't
y
know. I
quiero
feel
aprender a
impotent,
cómo lo vamos a vivir
and I want
y
to
como
learn how
organizadora,
we're going to live, and
cómo
as an
poder
organizer, how
ayudar a
I
la
can
comunidad a que
and
sobreviva.
move the community
Es
in
algo
these
bien difícil
times.
y
It's
perdón,
something that's really
pero
hard right
también
now,
uno
so I'm
tiene que aprender en la
sorry.
vida a cómo
But
vivirla,
yeah, we need to
porque
learn in
estamos en
life.
una
We need
lucha
to
de
learn how to
vivienda,
live because we're
también
in
estamos
a
en una
housing
lucha contra un
struggle,
sistema
and
opresor
now we're
que está detirando toda
in a
nuestra
fight
comunidad
against an oppressive
y
system that's trying
intimidando
to
para que nuestra
destroy
comunidad
our
no
whole
salga
community and
a luchar por
intimidating our
una lucha
community so
de
that we don't
una
come out
vivienda digna
and fight
o una
for
mejor
our
vida, un
dignified
fondo digno, sino estoy
housing, for a good
desconcertada y quiero saber
life
cómo
and
aprender
a
a vivir
living wage. I'm really
esto que estamos
disconcerted, and
viviendo
I want
ahora.
to learn how to live
Porque
the
antes hubo
way
grandes luchas como
what we're
lucharon por el
living
día del
now, because
trabajo, como les
before
decía,
we'd had
hubo
big
muertes y todo.
fights like we did for
Y
that
es muy triste
8-hour
saber que tiene
day,
que ver pasar eso
and there
para
were
poder sobrevivir.
deaths and everything. And it's so sad to
Y
know
lo
that
que
that
estamos
has to
viviendo ahora
happen in
es
order to
algo de
survive. And what
cómo,
we're living right
para mí
now
es cómo aprender a
is
vivir,
something for me
cómo
that it's
encontrar esa
about learning
solidaridad
how to live.
y
How
tocar
can we
ese
find
corazón. Es
solidarity
lo que
in this?
estamos
How can we
viviendo
touch
todo el
the
grupo
hearts
de los
of those
migrantes.
that were
Yo soy
that
migrante
we're all
juvenil
living as
y soy
immigrants? I'm an
organizadora y siempre ando
immigrant and
dando
I'm
lo
an
mejor cada día,
organizer. So I'm
sonriendo para
always
que
giving my best face to
esto
everyone, and I'm
da
smiling for
motividad
everyone.
o motivación
I'm trying to
y de este modo
motivate
puedo
everyone,
ahora
but
casi hacerlo. Me siento
I almost
muy,
cannot
muy,
do it
muy
because I
impotente
feel
y quiero
so
aprender cómo
impotent, and I
poder
want to learn.
tomar
I want to learn
liderazgo
how I can
para
be a
que
leader
empujar
again.
a
How
nuestras
can I
comunidades que tengan esa
push our
fortaleza
communities
de
so that
ahora.
they have that
Eso es lo que yo
strength that they
estoy
need
queriendo
right
aprender.
now? That's what I want to learn right now.
Thank you, Eva. And just as a time check, this goes till 4:30, so we're gonna keep doing check-ins as many as we can get in. So 3:30, and then we'll shift so we have enough time for presenters and for everyone to ask. So I will go ahead and pass it over to Chase. Again, just try and keep your check-ins as we get there.
Hi, my name's Chase. I'm also calling in from Moorhead, Kentucky, and I'm trying to be a part of the KI tenants. I was invited by Annette. I'm interested in like urban policy, land policy, and stuff. I want to learn how to keep houses affordable for people who really need them, and how to decrease poverty. And I'm also training to be a community organizer in Moorhead, Kentucky University.
Awesome, thank you, Chase. Let's go ahead and go to Rocio. When Rocio, you joined, the question is just who you are, where you're calling in from, and also something you're learning about or curious about. A couple sentences. While Rocio is getting set up, I'll go ahead and kick it to Jim.
Thanks, Alvin. My name's Jim Kelly. I teach at the Notre Dame Law School in the Community Development Clinic. My students represent small businesses and nonprofits, many of them cooperatives and community land trusts here in Indiana. And, curious, I just went with something I'm just starting to be curious about, although I've had this book for a while and I've not gotten around to read it. I'm kind of curious about just how much of our selves are set by the fact that our left brains are different than our right brains, left hemisphere and right hemisphere. And it seems like there's some really profound stuff there. I don't know if it really will actually lead me to anything useful if I do try to better understand the brain science there, but that's something I'm curious about. And so hopefully I'll eventually get around to learning a little bit more about it.
What's the
And
title of
so
the book again?
it's called The Master and His Emissary. It's by Ian Gilchrist. Yeah, Master and His Emissary.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll invite Rocio. You're ready to come off mute and introduce? Not? And we'll go to Elizabeth.
I'm Elizabeth Brewer, she, her, also from Moorhead. I'm with Kentucky Tenants as well. And right now I'm just curious about all of this because I'm really new to it. And so I'm just learning and excited to learn about everything.
Thanks for joining us. Okay. Daniel can't go. I'll open it up. Anyone else? Last couple. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
I'm so sorry. I joined a little bit later. Can you repeat
Oh,
the
no
question?
problem. Just introduce yourself, name, where you're calling in from, organization, and something you're curious or learning about.
Sure. Hello, everybody. Daniel Jimenez, Director of Community Organizing with the Inner City Struggle. I'm calling in from California, Los Angeles, East LA to be more specific. And pronouns are he, and. Something that I'm interested in right now is I am a musician and I've been playing music for a while now, but I've always relied on a band, right, to kind of complete the sound. But recently I've been trying to incorporate some loop pedals into my music, meaning that, just like me, myself, and my sound. So really excited about that, really excited about starting that music journey, like one-man band coming soon. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about right now. I'll pass it back.
Thanks, Daniel. We'll go ahead and kick it to Kayla.
Kayla Miranda at the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center in San Antonio, Texas. I'm the housing justice organizer, so I do all kinds of housing work, and I do collaborate with Renee, who's also on the call, and the manager of our land trust. I'm curious to hear how everyone else is building their land trust in their community and what works and what doesn't. And I'll pass it to Veronica.
Hi, everyone. Veronica Reed, Jane Place Neighborhood Sustainability Initiative in New Orleans, Louisiana. We're a CLT and housing justice nonprofit. Just always sort of like curious to learn more, sort of operate from a place of continuous improvement, because I just think that we as an organization need to always try to do better, be better, need to work with our residents better. So I'm here to learn. Yep.
And we'll pass it over to Satali.
Hi, everyone.
I'm Citlali. I work for the Beverly Vermont Community Land Trust and based out of Los Angeles in Central LA. What were the questions? Sorry.
That's something you're curious or learning about.
Something I'm curious or learning about. I'm also learning, like Eva was saying, how to survive in this moment. Things are really rough in Los Angeles for folks that are not from LA. There's a military occupation, and there's been over 30 days, I think, at this point, of kidnappings of our immigrant communities. So yeah, there's a lot that we're learning, and I hope that we're also curious about like what does the future look like for us, and how do we defeat fascism? I can pass it to who's next.
What's up, everyone? Casey, they also with the Beverly, Vermont CLT. I think something I've been trying to learn or balance is, I think in the vein of where Los Angeles is, it's trying to still, I think, existing under, you know, capitalism while also going through um you know, rate in the city has been very difficult. I think like I just generally been struggling to continue the day-to-day operations of this organization while simultaneously trying to, address the current conditions. And I'm just like, do I really got to do all this? So it's just been a rough moment, but I don't know who's next.
Thanks, Casey. I'll invite Jacques to share. Well,
Hi there. My name's Jack. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm from Indianapolis. I work at the Coalition for Homelessness Intervention and Prevention, and I'm really curious just to learn more about CLTs and how other places are doing it and like what's similar and what's different. And then like particularly like, is there an avenue within CLTs for like addressing homelessness? So glad to be here. Thanks, y'all.
thanks, Jack. Welcome. I will go ahead and pass it over to Rocio if you're ready to speak. Just introducing yourself, where you're calling in from, organization, and something you're curious or learning about.
Hola, buenas tardes. Primero,
Well, good
disculpas,
afternoon.
no podía entrar
First
a
of
la
all,
computadora.
apologies because I couldn't access
Mi
my
nombre es
computer.
Rocío Albiter,
My name is Rocio
Poder Emma,
Albifer.
mi pronombre
I'm
es
with Poder
ella,
Emma. I use she
y
pronouns.
creo que definitivamente todo lo que puedo aprender de
I'm
la,
trying
la
to learn
verdad
as
que
much
está
as I
haciendo
can
tantas cosas en sus
about
comunidades.
these
Estoy aquí
people who
para
are doing
agarrar
such
cualquier
wonderful
cosa que
things
se
in
me
their
haga
communities. I'm here to just
útil
grab anything that could be of
para el trabajo
use
que estamos
for the
haciendo
work that we are
en
doing
Asheville.
in Asheville, North Carolina.
Pero definitivamente
But definitely
lo que me gustaría aprender o lo que
something that I would like to
gustaría saber
learn or that keeps me
es
curious
cómo crear las campañas que pueden
is how
proteger
do
los
we
parqueaderos de
create
casas homeless.
campaigns that protect mobile home parks, manufactured home parks.
Es todo.
And that's it.
Okay, Rocio. Okay, did I miss anybody? Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and kick it off? And actually, one thing I want to, Jessica. Oh, thank you, Jessica. Go ahead. Thank you, Kayla.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jessica. I am with Poder Emma out in Asheville, North Carolina.
One thing I'm curious about is this whole team. Actually, I'm brand new to everything, so getting to learn from you guys is very exciting.
Thank you, Jessica. Welcome. One thing before we
Thank
go
you.
any further, I would invite everyone who wants to share their contact info to put that in the chat. So email, phone, whatever you're comfortable with. I do think, again, as we were learning to do new Lantras work, the biggest resources were just reaching out to people and having conversations one-on-one over Zoom, or even going and visiting people who are nearby or far away just to learn from each other. So we'll just take a minute, like for everyone who wants to put your contact information in the chat so that everyone can, if you see anyone that you resonated in this check-in that you want to reach out to, schedule another call with, I would definitely encourage and invite people.
Y perdón por interrumpir, se me olvidó presentar a mi compañera
Apologies for interrupting. I forgot to introduce our new colleague, Jessica. She's new at Building and she is in charge of advocacy and outreach. So she is brand new. She just joined the team. If we can all give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome. Just give everyone another 10, 15 seconds to contact. Thanks everybody who's sharing contact information. If you don't know how to use it, if you go to the chat, there should be some dots that will allow you to save the chat. So at the end of the conversation, through this, you can save it to your computer. But without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Daisy, who's the first person speaking. So I would start us with just the first kind of two questions, just a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in the work you're doing, and how did the organization you work with get started? So I'll pass it to you.
So thanks, Alvin. Hi, everyone again. My name's Daisy. I'm the organizer with Fideicomiso Comunidad de Tierra Libre. I've been with Fideicomiso for about 2 years. Fideicomiso's a little over 5 years now. So it's still a baby CLT. And I think there are other folks that can probably chat a little bit more about the history of the land trust. I could share what I know. But yeah, so Fideicomiso was originally incubated within ELAC, it's East Los Angeles Community Corporation, and they were to eventually become independent and formed in about 2019 with community members being incredibly involved um, to fight gentrification and look for tools to fight displacement in the communities. And yeah, how I got involved. I I think for me it was based on like my specific housing situation growing up, and seeing community being displaced, experiencing housing issues myself, and being in a mixed status household. Um, having to like, fight the landlord as like the child, was always like kind of like the thing in my family. And so continuing from there, I really wanted to find ways in which community and people were kind of carving their own ways of taking taking land back, taking their communities back, taking entire buildings. And so I found out about community land trusts while I was in college and really wanted to dive in a little bit deeper and try to understand that a little bit more. Um, and then I found Fideicomiso Comunitaria Terra Libre, and I I joined the team not too long ago. So yeah, I'm really grateful and yeah, I'm really grateful to be part of the team and part of just like a really great group of people. So yeah, so I can share for now.
Thank you, Daisy. I had a couple other follow-up questions, and I'm just going to start us off. People, just jump in if you got questions too, or raise your hand, whatever you're comfortable with. So could you share a little more about how you incorporate relationship building and culture into your organizing work? And what are some current projects that you're working on, key lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah. So I think a really important piece of how the land trust works is also like the sister relationship that we have with Community Power Collective. I believe Eva is here as well, and she's an organizer with CPC, and so they're our sister organization. We have a really beautiful like relationship where um, one of the key programs that we have is around like cultural power, and understanding that one of the most powerful things that we have against like oppressive systems is our relationships to one another, right? As Alvin has just mentioned not too long ago, our relationships to one another are often um, like it's the most important thing, right? And so with that also includes like our cultural practices that often come from collectivist cultures that care for one another, that care for the land, that never even had a word for owning land. And so for us with Margarita, another organizer, we we try to focus a lot on building cultural power um, and bringing in and remembering our cultural practices as well. And so we have like tamaladas, we have like a Justice March at the end of the year where we, march through the streets and sing songs. Um, and Margarita recently had a book launch of all the poetry that she's done throughout the years of organizing with community. But yeah, I think those are like the really important. No, I don't know if y'all can hear my dog's barking, sorry. Um, but yeah, that's kind of how we bring in um, like cultural practices and cultural power into our organizing. Um, there's a lot of joy and a lot of, movement and singing that comes along with um, justice and justice work as well. And as to our current projects, right now we have one building under the land trust called Simmons, and another building that is organizing um, to for the land trust to eventually take over and for them to take their building back called the Nali. So at Simmons, it is our first building, and the tenants are really interested in building a garden. We recently rehabilitated the building. It was in really, really awful conditions because landlords just did not fix the building very well, um, or ever. So there was a lot of rehabilitation that needed to happen first. And with that, there was a lot of trust building that needed to happen, right? For an organization to just kind of come in to a space with tenants and tell them, hey, you gotta leave, and then we'll bring you right back. There was a lot of folks that didn't believe that or didn't trust that. So there was a lot of trust building that needed to happen, and it was around the initial time that I had started. So there was a lot that needed to happen there. And as soon as folks came back, they were really excited and started thinking about, okay, what other ways can we take care of our homes, our buildings, each other? And they came up with the idea of a garden. So we're bringing in conversations around garden and taking care of the land, um, how we take care of each other, through these conversations. And then yeah, Donelli is also a really amazing building that we are currently, continuing to build relationship with and also building capacity. so that they can administer their building themselves and for the land trust to take the land. So we are actively learning and trying to build curriculum around how to build a housing cooperative in the first place. We have never done it before, but we're out here trying and reaching out to as many people as we can to try to better understand, the legal aspects of it. What are the things that they need to be doing right now? How do we fundraise for this as well, right? Thankfully for Tonali, another organization called Inclusive Action is kind of like the holding company right now for the building. So they did take it out of the market, and now they're, working. We're all working together to build capacity for them and eventually move it out of the market.
Thank you, Daisy. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. Anyone who wants to ask questions, follow up, dig any deep.
Yo, que soy compañera de Daisy, solo quiero
I'm a
como
colleague of Daisy's, and
decir,
I
ella
just
es
want
un
to,
trabajo muy,
say
muy
that
bonito. Creo
as
que
she was
venimos,
saying, it's beautiful work.
no todo solucionado con un
Um,
equipo complejo,
it does. I
donde
think we have,
luchamos a
a full
corto
team
plazo
in which
para
we
defender a
fight
nuestros
short term
miembros
to
que se han
defend
desalojados
our
y
members who have been
preparamos para largo
displaced,
plazo cómo
and we
tomar el
prepare
control
them so
de
that
la
long
tierra y la
term they
vivienda
can
por
take
medio del
control
fideicomiso.
of land and
Entonces, ¿crees
housing
que es muy
via the
importante
CLT.
trabajar
So we
juntos
think it's very
para poder
important
tener
to do
esa
our work
oportunidad de
together so
como
that we
hicimos
have this
cuando fue
opportunity?
comprado ese edificio que
Yes, like when we bought the
yo
building, for
estuve
instance,
presente
I was
escogiendo qué
present,
unidades vamos a comprar, ¿verdad? Porque
choosing like
teníamos
which
esa
units
oportunidad
are we
y
purchasing because we had that
decidimos ese
opportunity come
edificio
up.
porque era un poco más
And we
grande
decided on this
y
building because it was a little
proteger a
bit
esas
larger
familias que
and we could
iba a poder
protect,
ser
those
otra vez
families
sacadas por
who
los nuevos
were maybe once
compradores
again
y
going to be displaced by
conservarla
new
bajo un
buyers
fideicomiso ha sido muy
and be able to
importante,
preserve that under
aunque
a CLT has been
los
so important.
inquilinos todavía
So,
no sabían
even
eso,
though
había
all of
como
the
todavía
tenants
comité de
didn't really
confianza,
understand
pero
and
lo
there was a
bonito
lot
de
of
esto es
mistrust in the
que
beginning,
ahora ellos
what's
están
beautiful is
protegidos
that
y
now
no
they're
van a ser
protected
desalojados
and
y
they're not
viven,
going to be
como
evicted
dijo Daisy, están construyendo un
and they
jardín
live,
donde
like
la
as Daisy
comunidad va a
said,
volver
in a place where
¿cómo
they're
se llama?
now building a
Donde ellos son
garden, where the
el control
community
de ese edificio, donde
has
ellos pueden
control
aprender
of
a
the
cómo
building, where they
tener
can
plantas, a
learn
tener jardines,
how
donde
to
la
keep a
mayor parte de nuestros
garden, grow
inquilinos,
plants.
lo contrario, que
Most of
viven
our
bajo
tenants,
corporativos, les
the
están
ones who have like
desalojados porque
lived
tienen
under
una planta,
corporate like
están
rule,
desalojados
they've been
porque quieren
evicted for
construir,
having a
sembrar
plant,
algo para comer,
for
como
wanting to grow some
plantas
food,
comida orgánica, ¿verdad? Y bajo el
and wanting to grow
fideicomiso
something
es
organic in their
diferente
home. And
y
then
eso
under the
llevamos a
CLT,
nuestros
that's just
miembros
different.
ahí a
And that's
esas
something that
unidades,
we,
a
we
decirles la
have brought our
diferencia que
members
hay,
over so they
donde la
can see
comunidad,
and so they
donde
can
los
see
inquilinos
like
pueden
what the
tomar el
difference
control
is in living in a place that's
como
controlled by
viven
the
bajo un dueño
community, controlled by the
corporativo y
tenants,
sé que es
as
un proceso
opposed to
largo,
living
pero
under
eso es bien
corporate rule.
bonito,
And I
el
know that
trabajo
it's
en
such a
conjunto,
long
trabajar con
process, but
inquilinos a
it's really
defender a corto
beautiful
plazo,
working with
pero es muy
tenants
importante
to
luchar
defend them short
para largo
term, but
plazo
then
porque a corto
fighting
plazo es
for
muy
these long-term
agotante estar en esto, a veces
solutions.
luchar con
Because that
acosadores,
short-term
dueños y
fight
todo,
is
a donde
exhausting,
viven
like fighting
ahora los que
tenants in
viven y tienen
court.
la suerte y la fortaleza de
But
vivir
then,
bajo un
being able to
edificio, bajo el
see the
fideicomiso.
peace and
Esa
strength
es
of people
las
living in
cosas
the
que es
CLT.
bonito trabajar
So,
con las
yeah, it's
dos
just beautiful
comunidades,
being able to work with
como
both
es un corto
communities,
plazo y a
on
largo
that
plazo.
short-term side and then
O
on
sea,
the
estoy muy
long-term
contenta
side
en
with the
este
CLT. It just
trabajo que
makes me
estamos
really
haciendo.
happy with the work that we're doing. Thank
Gracias,
you.
Daisy, por también el trabajo
Thank
que
you,
haces.
Daisy, also for the work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. And I do have that did spark a question. So just from my understanding, you got a building that you've already purchased and renovated, and then another one you're working on cooperative. Is that correct? And if so, how did you acquire and were able to purchase the building, the first building?
Yeah, so for the first building, it was through a pilot program for community land trusts, and it included a number of other land trusts in Los Angeles as part of like the coalition that really fought for this, and this predates me. But they really advocated for this pilot program, and with that pilot program, it came with $14 million that was split up evenly, I believe, amongst the different CLTs. And so each of those CLTs were able to get one building. And so for us, it was a Simmons building. That's how we were able to acquire. So part of it went into acquiring the building, and I think a portion of it also went as part of the rehabilitation. Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
And that
Casey is messaging me saying it was not evenly, but it was a discussion. Thanks, Casey.
and yeah, and I'll open it up to Casey or others if you want to share about the coalition that you formed in LA, how that came about, and what value you see that as having for others to consider.
Casey can speak on that.
LOL.
Whatever works.
Hello everyone. My name is Casey Ventura. I'm with the Beverly Vermont Community Land Trust. I'm trying to come up with the synopsis of this story. What had essentially occurred, I think historically within Los Angeles, only two CLTs existed for a very long time. Trust Atholé and Beverly Vermont. And then toward as we were heading towards 2020, three new community land trusts came up, and there was a statewide network of COTs. And, you know, right before the pandemic, the LA-based COTs in this statewide convening made the decision to create this coalition in the city of Los Angeles due to the fact that rather than fight for resources, it'd be better if we collectively organize, but also collectively raise the funds as a coalition rather than be in competition amongst each other. Then the pandemic hit, and in LA, there was a coalition of over 200 organizations called Healthy LA. And one of the demands was a just recovery for Los Angeles, and meaning there was a desire to not return to the systems that we were used to and trying to create new systems as a recovery response. And out of that advocacy work came a pilot program for community land trust for initially it was just supposed to be for foreclosed houses, but the uh, because of the response from the state and the federal government, there was more funding allowed, and specifically there was $14 million that were not earmarked for any program, which was advocated to create the community land trust pilot program. And so that was kind of like the first big project of this coalition. The reason why I said it wasn't evenly, it was, I think to give you a perspective of Los Angeles and real estate, depending on the neighborhood, the value of land and housing is going to be different, right? So I think Koreatown, where BVCOT is based out of, it's some of the more expensive land within LA. And so, you know, for here, we allocated around 1.6 million. When we looked at Simmons and Boyle Heights, I believe the project was around 2 million. And they got 11 units out of those 2 millions. We got 4 units out of 1.6. So that's what I mean in terms of like it wasn't equal, but we also wanted to make sure that there was responses in the
This,
most highest needs area.
is that now?
And so then all the five CLTs were essentially playing Tetris and budgeting with this $14 million of like, there were some demands about at least one building per district, trying to make sure the initial program only asked for five. We bought 8 buildings. So it was also like trying to figure this out. So it was weekly meetings on real estate. And I think for a lot of us, it was our first time dealing with real estate. It was my first time. And so it was definitely a learning experience. We had developer allies to also, kind of teach us along the way. But it was very much like we collectively together went through an escrow, opening up the contracting, updating on the negotiations, hearing feedback on how to do it, and then also talking about closing the project. So that was not very much a synopsis, but that was essentially what the coalition was doing in 2020 to 2021. And Yeah, but I'm not the star of the show. It's Fideicomiso. So Daisy, please be the star.
No, I am not the star. We're all learning together. I have learned so much from Casey as well in terms of like also the Denali building and trying to create a housing cooperative. I also reached out to a number of folks to just, ask for support, and that's part of this. That's part of why we're here and sharing kind of where we're at. So no, thank you, Casey. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Casey and Daisy. And before we go on to any more questions, is there anyone on the call who has created a housing cooperative that might be able to connect with Daisy or knows who Daisy should talk to?
Hello, that is also me, but also Poderema.
Sí, Poderema ha creado cooperativas
Yes,
de vivienda
Poderema has created housing co-ops, worker co-ops, and real estate co-ops, but I lost what was the question because my call dropped and I missed the question.
Está bien, Rocío, nomás estábamos platicando
It's
sobre el
okay, Rocío. We're
proyecto
just
que estamos
talking
haciendo
about the
acá en Los
project
Ángeles y
that
de
we are
que crear
doing
una
here
cooperativa de vivienda.
in Los Angeles,
So,
and we were
en algún
asking who
momento
had
le voy a
done
hacer un
some
alcance
a
para
housing
preguntar
co-op.
cómo,
So I'm
cómo
going
lo
to reach
hizo,
out to you to ask
para
how you
aprender
did
de
your
ustedes
housing
también.
co-op
y si
because
podrías
I'd like to hear from you.
mandarnos un correo
Yeah,
a
please
mí
send
y a
send
mi
me an
compañera
email
Andrea.
and Andrea, my colleague,
Creo que
and we'll
sería
be happy.
bueno.
I think that would be the
Claro,
best.
gracias.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Daisy and the crew? Got a crew.
¿Algunas preguntas adicional?
All right. Well, Daisy, I'll ask if you could put your contact in the chat one more time. People want to talk and connect more. Please do. And now we're going to go ahead and kick it over to Jeff Washburn. I'll let you take it away. Sarah, kind of the same kind of questions, just a little bit about yourself, the organization that you work with in Minneapolis, and just a little background about how it got started. Then you're rolling.
Sure. Sorry about my camera. It's acting really slow, so I may just take myself off screen again. So I was to do this presentation with my former colleague, Stacy Horwitz, and she has a medical appointment that prohibited her from attending. So it's all right, Alvin. We put together 6 slides, and I may just go through those if that's okay.
Yeah, please go ahead. Take it away.
And that will touch on the me part of it, but then get to more important stuff if that's all right. So I will share this screen real quick. Let's say that. All right. So I started working for the City of Lakes Community Land Trust back in 2002. I was the first staff person. I did not know hardly anything about community land trusts, and community land trusts were not known in the community. But started as that first staff person and was with the organization for 21 years until I left just about 2 years ago when I joined Burlington Associates, which is a national consulting firm. What I think is important to note here, and I was hoping Stacy would touch on this, is just the things I'm most proud about in the organization were over the history and over the 370 homes in trust. By the time I left, they're at about 425 homes in trust now, and close to 550 households served, if not more. The thing I was most proud of is that we were serving on average households at 51% of our area median income in Minneapolis. So depending, on the year, most households were making between $25,000 and $45,000 a year in Minneapolis. And about 62% of the households we served were households of color. And that compares to a city where 40% of the population are households of color, but only 24% of households of color were homeowners. So we were, those are the things I think in context that are really important to talk about, just because I felt like we were very intentional about the work that we were doing. History. So Alvin had prompted a few things to hit on, and it took us a while to get there. So yeah, I don't know. People hear 400 homes in trust and think, oh my God, how would we ever get there? And you get there one home at a time, and it just takes time to do it. When our history started back in 2000, there was a CLT conference that was held in St. Paul. But out of that experience, a whole bunch of people from across the state went to this conference, and then they went back to their communities. And what that did was start essentially a lot of community land trusts in Minnesota in the early 2000s. So at one point, I think there were 16 or 17 community land trusts. Today, there are 14, 7 that are in the Twin Cities metro area, and then 7 that serve the balance of the state. We started kind of out of that initial work. The land trust serving the city of Minneapolis was known as the Minneapolis CLT Initiative. Ultimately, the name was changed to the City of Lakes Community Land Trust. But we started as a program of another community development corporation in 2002. We got our 501c3 nonprofit designation in 2003. And at that time, it was just me. And I was like, look, nobody knows about this land trust thing. The only way I'm going to be able to grow it is if I have money, which I didn't have at the time, or if we were able to get favorable policies in support of long-term ownership, community ownership. And that was even more impossible. So I went out and I was able to secure, I don't know, maybe $250,000, and basically went around to 4 nonprofit developers who I knew were rehabbing and selling homes, and just dangled $30,000 to $40,000 in front of each of those developers, saying, hey, I know you're going to sell this home and I know you're going to sell it to somebody, but if we put 40,000 into it, would you consider also selling it as a land trust unit? And that's really how we got our first home sold, was going out and raising a little bit of money, relatively speaking. And that helped kind of spur the growth. That, and then some really strong partnerships with other community developers, helped us grow the land trust to 10 homes essentially in our second year in 2004. We grew staff, and we bought our own offices in 2012. Part of this work, though, I think is really important, is that we were part of this ecosystem, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But there were CLTs that were growing across the state, and we formed this coalition, another nonprofit organization called the Minnesota CLT Coalition, back in 2005. And I currently serve as the contract admin for that group right now. But it's through kind of this pure work, this open source sharing of documents and policies and lessons learned, that really helped us grow in Minnesota. The City of Lakes Community Land Trust, again, my former colleague Stacy Horowitz is going to be on, and she's far more in tune with what the organization is doing these days. But I think they're sitting at about 8 to 9 full-time staff equivalents, and keep growing the organization steadily. Last year they had 48 closings. So they're really kind of plugging along and helping a bunch of folks get into housing. In the case of the City of Lakes Community Land Trust, it's all affordable home ownership has been the focus of the organization. So while we have had some rental units in the past and we had some contract for deed programs, the focus is on what I'll call traditional community land trust, ground lease restricted ownership opportunities. And then in addition to who we were able to serve, I think also I'm just really proud of my former colleagues and team, that we were able to really kind of bend the use of CLTs. So we did some really innovative approaches to utilizing the CLT to help solve community problems and to help folks do better for themselves and their families. And I think that legacy kind of keeps going on. One of the things I've picked up from your introductions is just how inspired I am about where things are going, and how each and every one of you are going to be pushing, new boundaries and ways to use the community land trust moving forward. So these are just some pictures from, a number of homes in different types of properties that the City of Lakes Community Land Trust did over the years. We had units in condos and townhome developments, dozen or so duplexes, homes with accessory dwelling units. We did have, and they still own, some rental units. But the bulk of the homeowners who purchased homes, if you look at that upper left-hand corner, bought homes through the homebuyer-initiated program, or what I think Alvin and his crew call the buyer choice program, where we went out, I guess I went out and raised a lot of money, and then we'd allocate funds to buyers, and then they, in their realtor, would go out and look for any single family home or duplex anywhere in the city of Minneapolis. So they're the ones choosing the home versus us as the developer. So they'd go out and find the home, and then post-purchase, we would take on deferred maintenance and rehab on the home. So over 200 of those City of Lakes Community Land Trust homes were brought into the land trust, but we didn't know what homes they were going to be until the buyers selected them. The other, I think, real kind of cool, innovative thing that we did in the lower left-hand corner, we used the land trust to assist very low income households. So on average, the households we assisted through this program were at 28% of AMI. We assisted existing homeowners who are at risk of losing their home to forfeiture or foreclosure, or property disinvestment, boarded and getting tagged by the city. We'd come in and make an investment in exchange for that household deeding over the land under their home to the land trust. We would take on all the deferred maintenance, and then we'd essentially get them back to zero on their debt and or credit issues. And it was a way to keep existing very low income households in their home while gaining a permanently affordable home and community owned asset in our community. And I was hoping Stacy would talk about these things. The organization was just finishing up its first kind of big development. Now, when we started, we really weren't a developer for the first 10 years of our life. We were a stewardship organization. We partnered with other organizations. And then during the foreclosure crisis, we started to become more of a developer. The organization completed this Franklin Station condos, which was a significant rehab, $5.5 million project of 7 beautiful condo units in South Minneapolis. The Harrison Townhomes was a 17 unit partnership with our local Habitat for Humanity. I know there was a question about bedfellows. I don't know if that was the bedfellows question, but we partnered with Habitat for Humanity in the development of those 17 townhomes, all going into the Community Land Trust. The Cedar 28 condo reference was a development that we worked with another nonprofit developer to build in 2005. 5 of the 15 units were community land trust units. The other 10 were market rate. There were a number of construction deficiencies on that condo development. And since I've left the organization, my former colleague Stacy went to each of those market rate homeowners because they couldn't afford all the deferred maintenance and rehab. It was close to $2 million. And she basically went out and raised that money and went to each of those market rate homeowners to say, if we take care of your share of the HOA fees on this, will you allow us to put a deed restriction on your property so that when you go to sell, it's now going to be permanently affordable? And so in that case, we used the Community Land Trust, where we had a minority ownership interest in this condo development, to a place where moving forward, it's going to be 100% of those units are going to be permanently affordable and community owned assets in that particular condo development. I spoke about the buyer-initiated program, and I also spoke about that program called Project Sustain Legacy, where we assist existing homeowners stay in their properties. 2 more slides. So the shared equity ecosystem here in Minnesota, it's taken time to get there. But once you get there, I think what I want to share is these coalitions that you all were talking about, these relationships with other shared equity entities.
For the interpreters, they'd ask if you could just slow down just a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Just talking about the ecosystem in Minnesota and in Minneapolis. When we first started in Minneapolis, I don't think the city of Minneapolis really cared if we were around or not. Definitely other developers didn't want us around. We were just another nonprofit mouth to feed. And it took time. That stated, 20 years later, the city of Minneapolis now has policies that if they sell a land trust home, or if they invest in any sort of affordable home ownership, they want to ensure that those properties are shared equity properties. And so over 20 years, we now have a system in Minneapolis where pretty much every one of the units is permanently affordable and permanently community-owned assets. There were some programs throughout the years that the city of Minneapolis made available and helped incent long-term affordability, but it definitely took us time to get there. Similarly, Hennepin County, the county in which the city of Minneapolis resides, any of the affordable housing money that they put out has to ensure at least 30 years of permanent affordability. So there's a preference built into that for community land trusts. And then our housing finance agency in the state, pretty early on, and I think this helped the land trust in Minnesota get pretty far along back in the early 2000s, served as a secondary market for community land trust loans. And they also have invested significantly in affordable housing. But within that, over 50% of most of the affordable home ownership dollars invested in the state go to those 14 community land trusts in some shape or form. I mentioned the Minnesota CLT Coalition, which has been instrumental, I think, not only in the growth of the City of Lakes Community Land Trust in Minneapolis, but also of these other community land trusts. And then many of your organizations, my sense is you've started first as community organizations or community organizing entities, neighborhood-based, community-based organizations. The community land trust, especially if you're working in the ownership space, is a very, very industry aligned requirement. It's tough to move forward with the community land trust unless you have mortgage products, unless you can play well within the mortgage industry. And so I know that these are sometimes at odds with the values of a lot of organizations starting from the ground up, but I think it really helped our growth to, in some ways, grit our teeth, hold our noses, whatever it may be, and say, we need to figure out a way to partner with the industry if we're going to be able to grow and help our households that we're trying to help the most by aligning with friendly realtors, socially conscious lenders, all those kinds of things as much as possible to help grow the mission of the organization. I started, and I think I stopped here on this page with 9 bullets. I could have come up with 1,000 lessons learned. But the key ones that came to mind, multiple programs or approaches. So funding comes in different forms and it responds to different market functions, responses. So, there may only be dollars for new construction, or there may only be dollars for acquisition rehab. Maybe there's a pot of money that you can use to help an existing homeowner stay in their home. So I'm not advocating to create too many programs, but I think to have a balance of different approaches and being able to be scrappy in how you bring assets into the community land trust is really, really important to growth and capacity. I really appreciate and believe in the homeowner-centric approach, that meaning that you take guidance from your membership. In our case, the majority of our membership were the folks that we served who are homeowners of the organization. So that comes in the form of leadership, not only members on the board, but I always tried to hire staff from this increasing pool of existing, homeowners because they were the best advocates and the ones who could best tell the story of the community land trust. We created a fund called the Opportunity Fund that we were investing money back into the homeowners that we served. We had several arts-based partnerships where we were creating opportunities for homeowners who are also artists to commission work and do work across the city. Trainings every month, post-purchase trainings. We constantly are trying to come up with events to get homeowners together. And then we were pretty intentional about surveying homeowners as well on a regular basis, not only because it helped us tell our story, but it gave us really good feedback on what we were doing well and what we needed to work on. Avoiding mission drift. It's enough work just to focus on a community land trust, less anything else that your organizations might be doing. We started an agricultural land trust, partnership in property, commercial land trust. We acquired another nonprofit that had a lending arm. All those things we spun off over time because we wanted to keep our focus and help us do what we were doing really well. We could have done those other things, but I think it would have negatively impacted our ability to keep being a really, really good residential land trust. Don't be afraid of acquisitions. We acquired a neighborhood housing services or a NeighborWorks affiliate, and it had a lending component. It also had a bunch of properties that it owned. And while I'd say for the first 5 years, every year we were hit with a $50,000 to $100,000 surprise that we didn't anticipate, the net has been that it really helped grow our balance sheet when those loans got repaid and when we sold properties, and it really helped us organizationally grow, even though there were some real pain points associated with that. It doesn't hurt to also get lucky. So 3 weeks after I left the organization, they were notified by the McKinsey Scott crew of a $10 million award. And that comes with both a blessing and I think a bit of a curse. Because that's a lot of money hitting the organization. And it's really important to take, if you truly are a homeowner-centric organization, how the organization moves forward and navigates how it invests back in the households that it's already serving, and then being thoughtful about how it moves forward and what role it should play in the community has been, I think, a growth pain for the organization. And if any of your organizations get hit with an opportunity like that, to be really, really thoughtful about how you take direction and move that forward. I don't know. When I first started, there was $5,000 in the bank account. I didn't know if I was going to get paid 2 months out. And it was nothing but 21 years of fundraising for me. That was my sole, I wouldn't say my sole job. It was a good chunk of my job, was just trying to figure out where the money came from to pay next week's salaries or next year's projects. But it got easier as our balance sheet got bigger. We didn't have to sweat, and I definitely got a little bit more sleep when we were able to grow the organization and build up the balance sheet. And I know the focus of your comments is all about the people and how we're doing what we need to do for the communities and the households that we're serving. At the same time, if your organization isn't around 5 years from now, then it makes it really, really difficult. And so at some point, you have to start thinking about how you grow the balance sheet side of the organization and build a durable organization that, despite what happens in the market, it's going to be there and it's going to be able to keep its promise to the community. So for me, the focus on the households we served as the compass point for the organization, raising dollars, and then policy and advocacy work to help complement those two things. It was those three things, kind of constantly trying to push them forward, that I think really, really helped grow the organization over time. As I shared, I left 2 years ago. The organization hired a land trust homeowner as the director. There's definitely been some transition challenges, and I don't know how you best plan for it, but it's really, really important to be thoughtful about executive transitions, and how the organization continues, because all of us need to kind of keep making way for the next leaders in our communities. And so being thoughtful about how that transition happens is really, really important. I threw in contract for deed programs. I have a lot of experience and a lot of wounds from administering, I don't know, probably 75 or so contract for deed programs, or lease purchase programs, I guess in a lot of states are called that. It's an important tool, and I think if we're really serious about serving folks that have been priced out of markets, we need to evolve this. And if anybody wants to have a side conversation about how best to do this, or maybe what not to do, I'd be more than happy to talk at some point in time about contract for deed programs and how you really set the organization and the households up for as much success as you could possibly hope for. And I just wanted to plug the conference. I put a link in the chat, and I'll stop there, Alvin. Sorry for talking. I get excited. You know that about me.
No, it's
Sorry.
perfect. Thank you. And the conference is really good. We attended 2 years in a row, and that really put our boots on around, particularly the nuts and bolts, the different kinds of programs you can run, and kind of the infrastructure you need. So again, thank you, Jeff. We only have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up. People who have burning questions they want to ask Jeff.
Hey Jeff, this is Renee. During during that during that time, was there a particular area median income that you focused on, or that the CLT focused on? Was it 80 and below? Was it 60 and below? What was it?
Yeah, our mission, thanks, Renee. Our mission said that we could not exceed 80% of median income. That stated our board from early on was really intentional in trying to price every home that we were selling at below 60% of area median income, in part because we had good data from the city of Minneapolis that said disproportionately households below 50 and even below 60% of AMI, 60% of AMI were households of color. And so we said, what? Let's not do this work unless we're going to go deep and increase the odds that we're going to be able to serve a household of color.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, I heard a question earlier about fundraising. Like, how do you do it? Can you speak, about a little bit about your experience on, how do you find money to do the work that you're doing?
Like, and I don't know if it came across, thanks, Alvin. It's like it's hard, right? And you have to keep doing it. I think in Minneapolis and in the Twin Cities metro, there's a good amount of philanthropic support. So that's helpful. And you can't hold that up against every community, but definitely folks who spoke today introducing themselves come from a number of markets where there's philanthropy present. So that's one way. But again, trying to lift up the policy and advocacy work, because in my opinion, if you can raise the affordability and the development gap needed for each home, it's not to say that you don't need to worry about general op funds to help keep the lights on and pay staff, but if you can solve for the gaps, then it makes it a lot easier to raise the general op funds or the programmatic dollars. And so for me, really focusing on that policy and advocacy front to make sure, and I got to tell you, it is 10 times, if not more, harder to do this work today than it was 20 years ago. I would only have to raise $30,000 or $40,000 per unit in the early 2000s to create a land trust home. When I left, I was raising 250,000 per unit. And that's a lot of money. That's $1 million for every 4 homes, right? Like, it's a lot of heavy lifting. And so what the other thing was is we could do that before with just one source of funds. Now, in most cases, we're bringing in 4 to 5 different sources of funding to create one home. It's as complicated, if not more complicated, than low-income housing tax credit deal, because you're doing it multiple times a year for every single family home, and the reporting isn't any simpler. So I think it's really important to make sure that you have every level of government that you can supportive in having at least a pot of funds available that you can apply for on a regular basis, and then trying to augment that with community support and homeowner support to help backfill that policy and advocacy work that's necessary, and then have really good data to help tell your story, right? And then you got to hold up yours, and sometimes it means saying, hey, state, you can keep investing in affordable rental. It's not to say that we don't need rental in our state, but you're putting in 350,000 per unit to create a LIHTC unit that's affordable for 25 years. Here's a proposition where I can keep this home, single family home, permanently affordable for 99 years at least. Where's the value proposition there? And many times our housing finance agency wouldn't want to hear that, but the politicians understood that. And sometimes you can find friends in unlikely places. At the heart of it, the community land trust is a very fiscally conservative model. And if you can frame it as such, especially if you're coming from a state that is fiscally conservative or conservative overall, I think there's an opportunity to kind of be that wolf in sheep clothing and say, help us fund this conservative affordable home ownership approach And then on the other side of the organization, you're doing everything you can to make sure you're serving the lowest income household that you possibly can to help out a family.
And let's riff off of Annette put a question in the chat. Annette, do you want to ask your question? Off mute, or I can read it for you. And it's in
Sure.
today's economic. Oh, go ahead, Annette.
Go
Please.
ahead.
All
Sorry,
you.
it took me a minute. I'm outside. I was just wondering, let me pull it up here to make sure I get it right. In today's economy, you know, who should our targets for fundraising be? The government, grants, loans, foundation, private funds, individuals. I was just in a conversation today and heard that there's going to be some changes for foundations. And so in Q4 and Q1, they're going to be offloading a lot of money. Do you think that's true?
I don't know. It certainly makes sense. And we've seen, given what's happening at the national level, a lot of foundations in Minneapolis really stepping up and going deeper than their typical, was it 5%, 6% requirement that they're required to invest, saying these are tough times and we're going to go deeper. So yeah, any and everywhere, right? Like individuals, as we grew, we'd sometimes get these pretty sizable checks in the mail, unsolicited. And I think it was nothing that I was doing. It was something that we all were doing to help lift up the organization. It was homeowners telling their stories. It was saying, hey, we're doing this and we're doing it right. And we got to take control locally over our local communities. And, the Community Land Trust is trying to address a public sector failure of the United States setting up housing as a free market capitalistic construct, right? So we got the public sector trying to solve for that, and they haven't been able to do it. Things have only gotten worse. And so that's why things like community land trusts are saying there's got to be a third or fourth way to do this. And let's give it a shot. And unless you can go big and keep building on this capacity, I think we can be in a place where we can say there's a different way of doing this that's more equitable. This thing works. When I took the job, I had no idea whether this land trust thing would work. And people would say, Washburn, I'm out there talking, room of 100 people. Anybody ever heard of a land trust? One person would raise their hand, right? Nobody knew how it worked. And people come up to me afterward, do you think this thing is going to work? I'd cross my fingers and say, yeah, I think so. But it worked so much better than I ever thought that it was going to. So much better. And it wasn't just the mechanics of the resale formula. It was seeing people's lives change. It was seeing the confidence that they built because they did something that they never thought they could do. The land trust didn't do that. We're already helping very motivated people who just want to do better for themselves and their families. We are a financing mechanism to do that. But long term, if you keep doing this, it changes the way we're all thinking about community. It's tangible.
Thanks, Jeff. And I do want to share, Jeff does do consulting and did some consulting work for us in Indianapolis, which was really helpful. Do you want to share a little bit about if people are interested in talking to you about that kind of work? What are the things that you do really well that you think you can contribute to others?
Thanks, Alvin. As you can tell, I still have a lot of administrator DNA in my blood. I really enjoy kind of growing the organization and being part of this really big, entity, and being, helping move things forward. So I definitely like working with organizations that are starting up, but, in the case of, Alvin's organization, the Indy CLT, they had already formed it. It was just a matter of saying, how do we move this thing forward and how do we really start to get folks into homes and make sure we have the right policies, procedures that thinking across the bow and seeing, not just planning for what's coming up this year, but how you start to plan and think about the next few years and start lining up projects and building the relationships in the community to make that happen. I do work. If you go to the Burlington Associates website, it's just burlingtonassociates.com. There's other partners that do community land trust consulting, and I also have a list I've been trying to build a list of anybody who's doing community land trust consulting out there that I'm more than happy to share as well, just so folks have options. But I really like the getting under the hood of the organization and trying to see how we move it forward and build greater capacity.
Thank you, Jeff. And again, I think Zaira was looking for if we could get a copy of the slides for the notes and to share with participants, that would be great.
And I breezed over it, but I again want to give huge kudos to my former colleague, Stacy Horowitz. She's been doing this stuff 16 years. We worked side by side for so many years, and she really is great as well. And she can give you that organizational perspective. But her email's on the slide deck as well.
Awesome. Well, why don't we give one last round of thank you, hearts, applause, whatever you're feeling, for Jeff and to Daisy for coming and spending time with us today. Awesome. So we're at 4:30 on the dot. So thank you for everyone for your time. I do want to share that we have another session next month that is on August 4th. So this is the first Monday of every month, 3 p.m. EST. Next month we have Hope from who works with the Sustainable Economies Law Center, but she's also on the board for San Francisco Community Land Trust. So she's going to be presenting about San Francisco Community Land Trust work and some of the lessons they've learned, as well as Dr. Ashley Allen, who's the executive director of the Houston Community Land Trust. So both of them are awesome. So we hope that you'll join us. I did put in the chat, if you didn't receive the email reminders from me, please put your email in the chat so I can add you to the email group to make sure that you get the reminders going forward. And that's it for today. Thank you everyone for joining and for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks, take care.
Gracias.
See you next
Adiós.
time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.